Hello and welcome to the Beat Cancer Answer, brought to you by BeatCancer.Org, the Center for Advancement in Cancer Education. We believe that 90% of all cancers could be eliminated through environmental and lifestyle choices alone, and science agrees. Unfortunately, most people don't know it, so we provide the education that can help you prevent, cope with, and beat cancer through diet, lifestyle, and other immune-boosting approaches. On every podcast, we will feature an expert who can teach us how to become part of that 90% who could prevent getting diagnosed with cancer. If you already have cancer, we have empowering information for you too. Over the past 35 years, we have helped thousands of cancer patients get back into the driver's seat when it comes to their personal journey of healing cancer and preventing future reoccurrence.
9 years ago, Laurie Beck was diagnosed with a rare and incurable form of cancer. In fact, two types of cancer, non-Hodgkins B-cell lymphoma and marginal cell leukemia. Doctors told her she needed to start chemotherapy immediately. She didn't, but 3 years later they could find no trace of cancer in her body. In this interview, Laurie describes her healing journey using a combination of Western and Eastern medicine and alternative healing modalities. In the process, she learned many unanticipated lessons about herself and about life.
Today, it's my great pleasure to be speaking with Laurie Beck. Laurie has 22 years of fitness and health experience, including over 1,000 hours of certified training as an expert in Pilates fitness. She resides in Santa Rosa Beach, Florida, and is the owner of Pilates Lifestyle, a comprehensive wellness studio where she's trained countless clients. Laurie is also a survivor of a rare and incurable cancer and an inspiration to many people through her personal memoir, I Am Living to Tell, and her second book, 8 Little Lessons of Hope and Healing. In 2010, Laurie began her journey into the world of inspirational speaking. She has appeared on the Dr. Oz show, has given interviews on numerous radio shows, and has shared her story in many magazines. One key attribute that distinguishes Laurie and her studio is that she takes the time to deeply understand each client's unique needs, concerns, and goals, and then crafts an individualized program to meet those needs. In that sense, Laurie works exactly as we do in coaching those with cancer. In fact, I'm proud to say Laurie is a recent graduate of the BeatCancer.Org Holistic Cancer Certification Program and serves as an ambassador for us in the special work that we do with cancer patients. Laurie, we think so much alike about cancer. It's such a pleasure to be interviewing a kindred spirit today. So, Laurie, at age 42, you were diagnosed with a rare and incurable form of cancer. When did that happen?
Well, I'm happy to say that it was 9 years ago.
Wow, 9 years ago.
Yes.
So tell us about your prognosis and your diagnosis and what the doctors told you way back then.
Okay. I always like to kind of give a quick synopsis of the symptoms or the signs that were lingering out there that I just kind of ignored because, being, I don't know, a female, or I take care of people, that my focus was more always on others versus myself, and I couldn't believe that there could possibly be anything wrong with me since I teach wellness. But long and short, there were some very key things that were happening, and the first one, which is really important and for people to understand, is I started with a rash on my body, and I just I brushed it off a little, thinking it was, something that was in my detergent or whatnot. But this rash kept waxing and waning. And so I went to a dermatologist, or maybe just maybe a PA doctor. And she said, just put this lotion on. Anyway, this rash went on for months. And and then it started spreading on my body. So it was kind of under my right breast, and then it was on my belly. And then from there, I was getting out of breath walking upstairs, and I was very tired by like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And then the piece de resistance was I had 3 lumps traveling down the back of my neck.
Mm-hmm.
All of those propelled me. Well, actually, my husband said, Laurie, it's time for you to go to an internist. I thought maybe I had mono. I didn't think any big deal, but when the doctor felt my spleen, that's when he said, we need to do blood work, which actually that was very smart on his part.
Mm-hmm.
From there, this being a local, I call him a beach doctor, but he's a good doctor. When my blood work came back, that's when I got the phone call that we have something serious going on here, and you need to go to an oncologist. And that's when the true journey began. I didn't even know what an oncologist was 9 years ago. So, went to a big hospital, big doctor, had my redid blood work where I thought they took so much blood from me. I didn't know how it was going to be replenished again. I mean, they took vial after vial. And then they did the bone marrow biopsy, and that's when they determined that not only did I have some form of marginal cell leukemia, but they diagnosed me with non-Hodgkins lymphoma. And I was told that it was very rare to see this in young females being 42, and that they haven't seen many cases. I think he said he had 5 cases in 15 years and that I needed to start immediate chemo.
Wow.
Boom. So that was doctor number 1, doctor number 2, and then I'll never forget, well, of course, I called my mom, and she said, I was ready to start whatever chemo, because my best friend was a nurse, an oncology nurse back in the day. I didn't even know that. And, my mom said, you've got to get a second opinion. And so, thank God, not only did I get a second opinion, but I got a third opinion.
And what were they?
Well, it was interesting because my mom lives up in Boston, and she wanted me to fly up there, and my husband wanted me to stay down in Florida because that's where we were. And this is funny not, but my mom said, there's better doctors up here. I mean, I really shouldn't be saying that, but I think there's great doctors everywhere. Anyway, when I got my second opinion, it was from the fellow doctor that I went to, and they both said the same thing. You need to start immediate chemo, and this is rare, and there's no cure. And
Right.
then what I did is I started reading about what I had and didn't realize there were like 32 subcategories of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and la, 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 la. So I did listen to my mother, and I flew up and I went to Dana-Farber, and he actually gave me a gift, and it's called time. And he said, well, if I was you, I suggest watchful waiting.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually liked that protocol. I'm going to call it protocol because, he told me some very key things to pay attention to in my body, and if I wasn't feeling well, that I should immediately fly back up, go home for 3 months, and come back, and we'll do CT scans and this and that. And of course, my husband was freaking out because he wanted me to start chemo immediately, but I chose my own path and my own journey.
Mm-hmm. And that's so important.
You have to. You have to go with what your gut tells you,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what I followed.
That's great. And I know you made a whole bunch of lifestyle changes that you think helped you.
I did. I would say the first and most important thing I did was I removed as much stress out of my life as I could. And the irony of that was, well, one, I didn't think I had stress until I really looked at my whole life.
Interesting.
And kind of, went back all the way into my childhood to the present time. And then the other irony behind the stress is my mom at the time was one of the biggest motivational stress speakers in the country and had written 10 books on stress.
That's Loretta LaRoche, right?
Yes.
Very famous lady.
What?
Very famous lady.
Yes, and I'm laughing at that because any kind of cancer in the body is exacerbated by stress, as we know, or any kind of disease.
So your mom was an expert on stress, but it also included giving you stress.
I think the beautiful thing about all of this was I watched my mom and was able to listen to her speak for 25 years. Mm-hmm. So I had like this toolbox that I didn't even know it had been closed for a long time and sealed. And she just threw all kinds of suggestions to me that opened up a whole new world for me.
Mm-hmm.
But the biggest thing was, number one, like I said, get rid of stress. Forgive everybody and anybody that you feel had done anything to make you feel terrible, or however you want to look at that.
And of course, forgiveness is not for the person who wronged you. It's for your own benefit more than anything else.
Totally for your own benefit. Surround yourself with love.
So this toolbox that Mom gave you that was filled with all these stress management tools, you decided to reopen that.
Mm-hmm.
And you decided to forgive everyone that you knew. And we said that forgiveness is more for you than for them, of course. You surrounded yourself with love. And what else did you do that was holistic?
Okay, well, that was more the external stuff, it obviously affects the internal. I'll never forget the first thing when I was flying up to Boston. My mom's getting a lot of accolades here. She said, "I'm going to take you to my Reiki master." Just seriously, it's like, what is that? What is a Reiki master? And she said, well, it's just somebody that's going to, move energy through your body, but they're not going to touch you, because I didn't want anybody touching me, because lymphoma is everywhere. It's in my body. And I was like, okay, I'm going to listen to you. And I'll never forget, after she was done, I had an hour session with this woman. Of course, she didn't know where I was sick in my body, because we didn't really talk about it. I was so freaked out. But she had let me know where she had felt some things, and she said, I couldn't leave the left side of your body. And what was interesting is that my spleen was actually, she didn't know, again, because I had my clothes on, was so enlarged and actually bulging out of my belly.
Wow.
So we did the Reiki, and when I was done, I felt such a sense of peace and calmness that I hadn't felt since I got my diagnosis, which had been like 3 weeks prior to that.
Mm-hmm.
After I did the Reiki, I was like, okay, that was interesting. That was different. And as I'm heading back home, she says, okay, go do some acupuncture as well. And I'm looking at her like, Mom, I have cancer. And she said, go get acupuncture. So, it's like, are you in denial? Are you not understanding? And that was the most incredible thing I had ever done, because, again, I had never done Reiki. I had never had acupuncture, which is odd or not. And when I did the acupuncture, which I'll never forget. I had so many needles in my body, I couldn't move. I said she was trying to get back at me for all the teenage trouble I gave her. So she was enjoying that I was like a pincushion. But when I was leaving, there was a bag of herbs sitting on the counter. And I mean, this is a true Chinese medicine doctor. This is a doctor that has 7 years.
Probably the best kind.
What?
Probably the best kind.
Yes. Well, he had designed a formula specifically for me. And he said, you need to drink 30 ounces of this a day. And I said, well, I didn't come to drink herbs. I came to do acupuncture. And I mean, he basically looked at me and he said, well, do you want to get well? And I thought, how arrogant. No, I want to stay sick. This is fun. And he said, well, then drink this tea. And oh, my.
Not too yummy.
What?
Not too yummy.
It was the worst. I thought I was drinking at first poison. I mean, if I wasn't going to die from the cancer, I was going to die from the tea that they designed for me. And I actually called them up and I said, I can't drink this. This is horrible. And they said, trust me. They said, after you drink it, this was the funniest thing. Eat a raisin. I was like, oh, that'll help. So long and short, I drank that tea for 4 years, and it was so interesting because I actually started liking it. It became my, I called it my healing potion. So
that's great.
Along with that, I also did Qigong, which helps the T cells. I think it boosts your T cells by 20%. I became very vigilant, very, very in tune with what I was eating, even though I ate a Mediterranean lifestyle of eating. I became very fanatical about not realizing that there were hormones and things in our food that we were being exposed to, just drinking out of a plastic bottled water or any of that. I stopped everything and just ate super clean.
Wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
So, Laurie, I understand that only about 1% of patients can experience a spontaneous remission from what you had. And of course, we both know that from the perspective of oncologists, that means people getting well for no apparent reason. Now, you know the reasons you got well, and you know all the ways that you worked to get well. But at what point did the doctors tell you that you were cancer-free?
It was a 3-year journey for me. And it was a process being, at first I went every 3 months. Like I said, we did the blood work, we did the CT scans, whatever, and then it would go to 6 months. And they were, they're monitoring and looking at my markers and my numbers, and I was just getting better or cleaner or whatever you want to call it with whatever I was doing. And it was interesting because every time I'd sit with the doctor, he would look at me and he'd say, "What are you doing?"
But is that doctor now recommending that to his patients?
Well, I think everybody's journey is different. And what I loved about him was he never looked at me and said, "Oh, no, you can't do that. Oh, no, that's not a good idea." He would look at me and say, "Keep on keeping on," and would smile and just was happy that things were going the way they were.
Well, I'd like to know who that doctor is. I think I have some patients to refer him.
He's amazing. He's Dr. Fisher at Dana-Farber. He is really an amazing doctor. And that was the other thing that I felt his pure concern and I felt good with him, and that was the other reason why I chose my doctor. I felt safe. I felt
so important.
loved.
That's so important to feel comfortable with your doctor. And another thing you said, Laurie, that I really wanted to seize on, you didn't miraculously get better overnight. You focused on the fact that it took you 3 years to get well. And so many of my patients, they want the quick fix. Even the oncologists want the quick fix. They're going to get rid of your cancer, and in 1 month it's totally gone. And I'm going, yeah, but that's just that's cancer as a noun. That is not cancer as a verb, as a process. You can't just remove the symptom and think you have a cancer cure.
Well, and people need to understand that your cells change every 3 to 4 months, or your red and your white cells, or that's why they want to do your blood work every 3 to 4 months. And you got the good cells and the bad cells, and when the body is weak, those bad cells, they're just waiting there to jump in and go, ha ha ha,
Right.
I'm going to come get you.
So you can't just remove the symptom, you've got to repair the body.
Yes. Yes.
One of my favorite questions to ask patients, and you know this, is why they think they got sick. And most patients know, and the information is so powerful for helping them get well. So, so why did you get sick?
We would need a whole another show for that. I have many beliefs or many things that I feel were the cause, but I do know I've always had anxiety, which made me in this chronic, worry state. I loved to worry, and I would pre-worry, post-worry, and I had some things that happened to me way back as a young child, and then in my early 20s, and I think it was just a progression of chronically having stress in my life that I didn't know how to cope with it. And so my body was never allowed, or my mind, it was really my mind that needed to be cleared and cleaned out and become in balance. Because, if we're not good in our head, we're not going to be good in our body.
Mm-hmm.
And it really makes sense now to me, this mind, body, spirit connection. All of those have to be in sync in order for us to, like I said, have harmony or be balanced in the body.
Mm-hmm. Now, did you want to say more?
Nope.
Okay. Well, I want to ask more. So,
okay.
My patients who really get well and beat the odds often say cancer is the best thing that ever happened to them. What are some of the key lessons that cancer taught you that you never thought about before you had cancer?
Well, I am going to agree and say it was the best gift I ever received. And I say that on so many different levels because once I got cancer, in a weird way, I stopped worrying. As they say, don't sweat the small stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So little things really didn't matter anymore. I saw things differently. I experienced things differently. I looked at things differently. I used to be, so afraid to fly because I always thought the plane was going to crash.
Mm-hmm.
And my new mantra, as I now fly all over the place, is, what's the worst thing that can happen? I already have it. So now I embrace everything in a whole different light. And I've always been appreciative of what I have, and you know, I've been very blessed with children and a loving husband and all of that, but I just I don't care about all the things that I thought I cared about.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just happy to be in the moment and to be here and to be able to gift whatever I've been given and share that with others.
And I guess that's why you wrote your books, right?
That was because I had no it's not like I ever wanted to write a book. My expertise really is I trained horses.
Huh.
And that was a gift again. And then because I had so many chronic lower back issues and neck issues, that got me into Pilates, and that became another gift that I love to share with people. But I was sitting with a doctor in New York, and we were having lunch, and I was telling her my story. She was not my doctor. She was actually my mom's doctor, and she said, I've never heard of such a thing. You need to tell your story. You need to write a book. And I thought, oh, Lord, now it's going to look like, because my mom wrote a book, I need to write a book. And, you know, my husband's written 4 books. But that wasn't the mission. The mission was, okay, I'm going to put a spin on my book, being, and I believe you may have just read it, that it's really about life, and it's not really about cancer. It's more about the dynamics of life, and I just kind of interwove that into my healing journey.
Well, I think that's very interesting that you want to make it a life journey, right? A life message. And I was quite intrigued about your little lessons of hope and healing, and I was hoping you might share some of those with our listeners.
Okay. That was actually the first little book that I did, and the purpose of the little book, I call it more like your daily mantras or whatever you want to call them. And so I needed to have I actually learned 8 lessons on my journey. And, you know, I needed to learn how to create serenity in my life. And I talk about, you know, what gave me serenity. I needed to have humor through this process. Instead of dreading whatever, I actually took every situation and I could flip it and create humor. I needed to change, I used to call it my stinking thinking. I needed, what do I have there? We have healing. We have all the different, you know, lessons I learned, and then what I did is, what did it mean to me? And I actually created a piece of jewelry to go with each one of my lessons, because I would wear that and it would help me to stay in that moment. So if I was having a bad day or I wasn't thinking correctly, I would wear one of my bracelets with my message that would help me stay in that moment.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's terrific. Now, I know that besides the recommendation that you needed to write a book, you also wanted to inspire others who were dealing with an upsetting health challenge or a scary diagnosis.
Yes.
And can you talk a little bit about what you wanted to do to help these people?
Well, I know how I felt when I got my news, and I was, first of all, I was paralyzed, and I couldn't even think straight. And I mean, I could go back to the moment of all of it, and then I just became numb, and I was just kind of going through the motions. And what I want people to understand, or what I wanted to share, was that we can get our news, we can go to the doctors, but really you have to take charge of the situation.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to create a team of people that are going to be your team and my team was, yes, I had my doctor up at Boston, but I was also educating myself. I had books being shipped to my house, and I was reading as much as I can, and I was trying to understand what I needed to do and what was out there that I could, help my body heal, help my mind heal, and get to that place that I was journeying to. And I did a lot of visualization, and I did a lot of meditation, and those were the things that I felt. I didn't hear stuff like that with other people that were sick. And so I wanted to share what I learned with the hopes that it would help others. And it doesn't matter if you do chemo or not, but we got to keep the body strong.
Mm-hmm.
That's the most important, is keep that immune system strong, keep that mind strong. And that's why I wrote my story.
Well, it's a wonderful story. It is full of humor. I loved reading it. You definitely taught people that hard work is in order, but you can't just have the doctors do the hard work. You can't just remove the tumor from the body. You've got to cut it out of your mind as well. And
Yep.
and I think more than anything else, I got the sense that you needed to let go of all these negative emotions, what you call stinking thinking, but it's also the emotions of fear and anger and resentment. Is that easy to do, to let go of those emotions?
I think they're just there, and we have to learn how to not allow them to take over. So you're always going to have, maybe a bad day, or someone's going to upset you, or you're doing something that you don't really want to do, but you have to really figure out ways to make them joyful as much as you can. And I think that's some of the things I learned. I was never really an angry person, I don't think, but I did have some really unique things happen in my life that, like I said, I share in my book, that not the normal person would have in their life.
And you had some serious losses, as I recall. You lost some things that were very important to you, and that struck me, because we think about having losses of people that you lose in your life, but that was not only what was affecting you, was it?
I had sadness, yes. I had things that I kept saying, why is this happening to me? What's the message here? What am I supposed to be learning here? And I just never understood why. I would look at other people, I'm like, wow, they have pretty nice life, or they don't have these struggles. And I just had some really unique challenges in my life that, but I think that's what has made me who I am.
Mm-hmm. So, Laurie, what's the most important piece of advice that you want to share with someone listening to us today who's just received devastating news like cancer?
Well, there's so many different things I'd like to say, but when we do get this news, which we all know is, I don't think there can be anything scarier. You don't necessarily die from the disease. You die from the knowing. And I say that very strongly because you can walk into a doctor's office and they can look at you and say, "Oh yeah, you have 6 months to live. You're not going to make it." Well, okay, you just put a message in my brain, and that's what I'm going to walk away with. Versus what we need is, no, we don't need it sugar-coated, but we need some form of hope and maybe some really good, it should be that there are some things out there that you can do. And I think that's partly why I wrote my little hope and healing, because there's always hope. And having a good faith and a belief and knowing that you want to get through this no matter what the outcome is, that you're going to go in there and you're not going to go at it with fear, but you're going to go at it with love.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's wonderful advice. And if you have a doctor that's all doom and gloom, that doctor should be in your past tense really fast.
Immediately.
If not sooner.
Yeah.
You can always, if you're willing to look, find someone who is medically trained to support you on your journey, who doesn't have to give you negative feedback and can just be encouraging, like your wonderful doctor at Dana-Farber.
Yes, and there was I had an interesting thing that I had a person tell me that she was diagnosed with a rare liver cancer or whatever. I don't know if it was rare, but and she's a photographer, and she's happy with her one doctor. And I said, well, why wouldn't you go to another doctor and get another opinion? Oh, he graduated from Duke and this and that. And I said, but don't you look through a lens differently than another photographer would look through a lens? And isn't maybe another doctor might see this scenario in a whole different light?
Interesting advice.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that second opinion, I beg everyone, get your second opinion, always. I don't care if this doctor has 15 degrees. Get that second opinion.
And maybe get a third opinion. And then...
yeah.
Right? And then maybe
yes.
Get an opinion from a totally different perspective, as you say, someone looking through a lens who maybe doesn't see you as your cancer, but sees you as potential.
Yes.
Well, that's all great advice. So here you are, 9 years later, loving life, enjoying life, being well, and teaching people not only about Pilates, but also about living.
Yes.
Well, that is wonderful. I am so grateful for your having taken the time to share, and I do encourage everyone to get hold of Laurie's book, I Am Living to Tell. It is such a wonderful and entertaining memoir. Here you have a terminal cancer diagnosis, and you're laughing about it, and you're making your reader laugh about it.
Well, I think I was just sharing, how I saw life and what has occurred in my life. And I want to say this before we close, Dr. Susan, I like to call you Dr. Susan,
okay.
That you are exceptional on so many levels that I could not believe while I was going through, the course, and I'm listening to you. We don't even know each other, and you were saying exactly everything that I talked about in my book, and I was just in awe, and I am in awe of you, and I think what you're doing and helping all these people is just a wonderful gift, and I'm sure they know that, so I needed to say that.
Thank you so much, Laurie, for your nice comments. And Laurie, of course, is referring to our online holistic cancer certification training course, in which I share what it took me 38 years to learn in about 10 hours. And thank you for appreciating that course, Laurie. And thank you for your time today and for sharing all your wonderful messages.
Thank you so much for joining us on the Beat Cancer Answer. If you learned just one thing today about how to prevent, cope with, or beat cancer, then we have succeeded in our mission. For more information or assistance, visit our website at BeatCancer.Org. Remember to sign up for our educational email series and get your free gift. Join in the conversation on Facebook, Twitter, or Google+, where you can meet others who think just like you. We appreciate all of your feedback and love your suggestions. Please also remember to rate us on iTunes. Your positive ratings help us to get discovered so we can save more lives. Thank you again for listening, and best wishes for good health from all of us at BeatCancer.Org.